At this point, I want to briefly share with you how a microphone turns sound into an electrical current and how a speaker turns the electrical current into sound. Allow me to fetch a microphone. Right, folks, I'm back. I have in my hand a Shure Beta 87. Great vocal mic. And to give you an idea of what's happening, I'll also be showing a diagram. But for now, inside here, we have a static magnet as well as an electromagnet. And the diaphragm is connected to the electromagnet. When air moves that diaphragm, as we said, sound moves through the air. It is vibrations. When those vibrations hit the diaphragm, they move them. That movement moves the electromagnet over the static magnet, which causes a current by means of induction. And that is literally how a microphone converts sound into electrical current. That electrical current is then processed via many different devices that we have. Devices to which we'll give some attention in a later video. I'm going to give some examples, things like effects processors, compressors, mixers, obviously, one of the important ones. Reverb units. Going out from there to things like the crossovers, to equalizers, into amplifiers, from the amplifiers into the speakers. That is how the sound travels to the end. Now, in a speaker, I'm not going to open a speaker for you. I may show a diagram. In the speaker, the reverse happens to what happens in a microphone. You have, again, the static magnet with an electromagnet connected to the actual speaker, the membrane of the speaker. And as the electrical current is put through the electromagnet, changing the magnet's polarity from positive to negative, and that causes the magnet that is static to move away from or towards the electromagnet. And the static magnet is actually connected to the physical speaker that moves and creates the sound. That's how sound travels from here to the microphone, through the whole array of electronic devices or electrical devices that we use in sound, out to the speakers and then get sent to an audience. Something that we should be aware of is that with the advent of digital sound, there has been an additional conversion process that has been put into this chain of electrical current. Namely the AD-DA converter, or the analog to digital, digital to analog converter. In terms of analog sound, the actual vibration of the air vibrates the diaphragm of the microphone, which moves the electromagnet inside or outside, depending on how the microphone is created, inside or outside the static magnet, and that causes induction current to start moving. With an analog to digital converter, the actual signals that are being received are converted from electrical current to digital code, zeros and ones. Again, we're not going to talk about that much right now. In a future video, we'll touch on that. But it is converted to digital signal, and the moment it gets converted to a digital signal, we then have control in the digital domain of this. And something to bear in mind with digital signal compared to analog signal is this. Digital signal does not degrade when you copy it. In the old days of tapes, you would have an original master cassette and someone would make a copy of that. This copy would be slightly damaged. It would be of a little bit less quality than the original. Now someone would take this tape and make another copy of that, and the quality would keep degrading. A good example of this is if you take a picture and put it into a Xerox machine, into a photocopier. You make a copy of the photo, take the original out, put the copy in, and make another copy. Do the same. Take it out, take the copy, put it in. As you know, you probably have done this or seen this in your own life. The copy will deteriorate. It will degrade in quality. This is exactly what happens with analog sound when it is duplicated. You have a recording on either tape or vinyl, and as it is copied, there's obviously some noise being introduced. The actual physical tape or vinyl on which it is adds some noise and so forth. I'm not going to get too deep into that. But in this respect, digital audio is of a great advantage, because once you have made a copy of the original, you don't have to be stressed about degrading it. The copy always remains of the same quality. For that reason that people, well, that's part of the reason why people would copy a CD and still have an original quality recording. Bear in mind, copying CDs and music is highly illegal. It is regarded as theft by most countries and the laws of those countries. In the digital domain, we can now manipulate the sound much more than we would have in the analog domain. Again, mainly because of degrading, and then secondly, because of the ease with which programmers can write software to manipulate the audio. Again, I'm not going to stand still on that for too long. We'll get to digital audio at a later stage. Suffice to say at this point, the normal signal is carried from the microphone, turned into electrical current, sent out. If you use only analog equipment, this travels to the devices that you're using, including things like compressors, mixers, reverbs, out to crossovers if required, amplifiers and speakers. In the event of using digital equipment, this will still be created, the current will still be created by the microphone, but at that point it passes through an analog to digital converter, which converts it into digital signal. The digital signal is then passed along. You also have virtually no signal loss or quality loss over longer distances with digital. We can, for instance, have an Ethernet snake, which is about that thick, maybe even thinner than that. Ethernet snake that lies for 100, 200 meters. And the signal that goes in on this side, the digital signal, comes out on the other side of exactly the same quality. Whereas if you have a snake this thick for 16 or 24 channels of analog audio, after 30 and 50 and 60 meters, it starts to degrade in quality, and you have obviously interference from various other elements around it, things like radio waves, things like electricity and the like. In that sense, digital is a great advantage. There are still to this day schools arguing for and against digital, arguing for and against analog. That is something that you need to sort for yourself and listen to and decide upon. It is quite true. Analog tends to be a little warmer, a little more real. Digital tends to be a little bit clinical, but it is crisp and clear, and it is so much more manipulatable, if that is a word. Whichever way. I'm not saying that I'm pro or anti any one of the two. I'm merely sharing with you what is out there. This concludes the session of the basics of sound. In our next session, we'll look at frequencies in a little bit more detail. I look forward to seeing you there. Cheers.